What's up, everybody? I am going to be smoking some ribs today, but because of some requests that I've had, I'm actually going to show the prep work that goes in before everything goes onto the grill. So with that being said, here is what that looks like. All right, so first thing, obviously got the grill out, got it plugged in, everything's ready to go. Just filled up the hopper to make sure there's plenty of wood in there. And a little shout out to Pit Boss. So set it on to smoke, and we're gonna let that run for about 10 minutes to kind of get warmed up, prep the grill. I'll then clean it out a little bit with my brush, and then from there we'll go inside and get those ribs ready. I'm going to be using Pit Boss's competition blend pellets. These are great for pretty much anything. I've used them for steaks, ribs, pork chops, bacon. The flavors that are in there really kind of go well with everything. So that's why I most of the time I stick with this one. I do like their mesquite. I do like their applewood. Those are also really great options as well. So, but this is what I'll be using today. All right, so now that the smoker is warming up, we are going to get this rack of ribs prepped. So this is a baby back ribs. So this is, or also known as pork loin ribs. So this has a stretch of the pork loin, the tenderloin, across the top here. So it's a little bit meatier, especially on this half, than most ribs. If you're doing competition, I don't do any competitions, but that cut is usually the short rib, and it's usually like the center of that cut. However, we're going to prep this. Now, a couple things. Normally, there is a membrane that goes across the bottom here. The butchers that got this together already handled that for us. So, unfortunately, I don't get to show you that. What I will say, though, some tricks with that is using a butter knife. And you would just kind of stick it underneath the membrane that's there, kind of lift it up, and then I'll use a paper towel to grab hold of it and pull. So I usually start on one end and just try to get a good grip on it and pull away. I did trim off some extra fat here. It was just a little bit, some chunks that were just gonna burn off. They weren't really gonna cook anyways. So with that being said, now we're gonna prep it. Today we're using Louisiana Hot Sauce for the binder. This is just kosher salt. Okay, so apparently the video stopped recording while I was talking about this and while I seasoned it. So where I left off is I'm using kosher salt, which is a better salt to use, especially when we're dealing with meat. There's no sugar in it, so this is just overall a better use of salt, or a better type of salt. And then I'm using Rudy's dry rub. They're from Austin, Texas. This does have some salt in it, so you want to be careful not to put too much of this salt on. But you want to give it a nice thin but even layer on both sides, top and bottom. And then you can use the rub. I don't want to put too much, so a lot of times I'll just kind of go around the edges and then fill in the middle. I still want to be able to see some of the meat through. And then I used Louisiana Hot Sauce as a binder, which is just so that we're able to have the seasonings that we're putting on stick to the meat and not rub off as easily. So that's all the binder is. You can use olive oil. Some people will use mustard, especially when dealing with ribs. I don't care for mustard, so that's why I stick with Louisiana hot sauce. Also gives a little extra flavor. So I've seasoned it. I have let it sit down. So once you put the seasoning on, you want to let it sit for about 10-15 minutes to let the meat sweat, which you can see now how it's kind of glistening. This indicates that it is ready to go. The grill is set to 250 and should be ready to roll now. So we're gonna take these out and we're gonna put them on. So it's 250 is the temperature. We're gonna cook it for 2 hours unwrapped. And then in the meantime, we'll be basting with some apple cider vinegar and a couple little splashes of the Louisiana hot sauce, just to keep everything nice and moist. Moisture is very important when you're smoking meats because, especially with pork, it can dry out very easily. So that's what we're gonna do next. All right, so we're gonna go outside now and get the grill prepped for the temperature we're gonna be cooking at, which is 250. So I'm gonna go ahead, it's been sitting long enough, bump it up to 250. We'll let that take about 10 minutes or so to reach its temperature. It'll kind of go push a little bit above and then come back down and settle on 250. So we'll come back in a minute to see how that is working. All right, so grill is at temperature. We're at 255, which is totally fine. You usually want it to cook somewhere between 250 and 260. So we're gonna go on unwrapped. We're putting it bone side down to collect the heat. And we're gonna set it up on the top rack just so that it's only collecting the heat from the actual smoke itself. So,
what are you putting on the top rack?
Putting it on the top rack so that it doesn't have to be too close to the fire. So it's just collecting. It's just cooking from the smoke. So that's why we're going on the top rack. And now we wait for 2 hours. All right, so it's been an hour. Now it's time to baste. So let's go outside and get that done. It's been 2 hours, so we're gonna go ahead and take these off and we're gonna get them wrapped without burning myself. So it's been 2 hours wrapped on the smoker. After 2 hours unwrapped, let it rest been about 25-ish minutes. So now we open it up.
Oh yeah.
Smells really good. Let's see if we get any ribs, any bones, and we do. It's really good.